As we do and have done each day, we're going to lay some groundwork for the week. So every day we know where we are and why we are here, why our history matters as we move forward in this unprecedented time. We've got to get on the same page right through here, however. If we know our history, we can clean up what we've messed up. And as Spanish philosopher George Santayana said, and Malcolm X repeated, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Who do we need to be on this day? To answer that, we're going to look at Jesus and Dr. King and the concept of being as shrewd as a serpent and innocent as a dove. Martin Luther King Jr., in the first chapter of his book, A Tough Mind and a Tender Heart, in the book Strength to Love, he relied upon the scripture in Matthew 10:16 for his exegesis. King began, a French philosopher said, no man is strong unless he bears within his character antithesis strongly marked. The strong man holds in a living blend of strongly marked, achieve this balance of opposites. The idealists are not usually realistic, and the realists are not usually idealistic. The militant are not generally known to be passive, nor the passive to be militant. Seldom are the humble self-assertive or the self-assertive humble, but life at its best is a creative synthesis of opposites in fruitful harmony. The philosopher Hegel said that truth is found neither in the thesis nor the antithesis, but in the emergent synthesis which reconciles the two. King went on to write, Jesus recognized the need for blending opposites. He knew that his disciples would face a difficult and hostile world, where they would confront the recalcitrance of political officials and the intransigence of the protectors of the old order. He knew that they would meet cold and arrogant men whose hearts had been hardened by the long winter of traditionalism. So he said to them, behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. And then he gave them a formula for action. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. It is pretty difficult to imagine a single person, Dr. King says, as having simultaneously the characteristics of the serpent and the dove, but this is what Jesus expects. King concluded, we must combine the toughness of the serpent and the softness of the dove, a tough mind and a tender heart. It is my hope on this show to focus with our special guest, Takuma Roback. We're going to discuss the character of the nation, blending opposites, diametrically opposed opposites. Dr. King and Jesus of Nazareth gave an instruction to each disciple as an individual. You're going to be both a serpent, tough when you have to be, and a dove when you always must be. A serpent and a dove. It's hard to imagine a person or even a nation having both the characteristics of a serpent and a dove. But this is what Jesus expects. And he expects it of his disciples to look out for the least of these, those who need food and those who are hungry and those who seek the restoration of their lives and redemption, to those who are born in the struggle for change and the need for economic as well as social and mental change in their lives. Today, Takuma Roback, a lifelong writer, editor, and storyteller, who is the managing editor of the Chicago Defender since opening the dictionary at the age of 5, Roback has been passionate about words, writing, and storytelling, so much so that he's dedicated his life to them. With a career spanning nearly 30 years, Roback's work has appeared in numerous publications, including the Smithsonian Magazine, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Tennessean, South Florida Sun-Sentinel, Phoenix New Times, hiphopdx.com, OK Player, the Shadow League, the Encyclopedia of Identity, downstate story. He's an alumnus of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, Chicago State University, and Florida A&M University. He resides in Chicago with his wife Tracy and two children, Kalia and Tremaine, and their orange tabby cat, Sparkle. I want to talk about character for the next hour. In the second hour, we will bring in two distinguished female journalists, Hermine Hartman and Delmarie Cobb, both of whom have covered presidential as well as national campaigns, worked very hard in this last campaign for the first African-American woman Democratic nominee. The character of the nation will be our focus today. Takuma, let me begin by welcoming you to KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse, this is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for having me. I look forward to this enlightening and illuminating discussion.
We are going to have an absolutely illuminating one. A national story has begun because of an article that Takuma has written about me on the question of character and the forgiveness of millions of men and women who need Joe Biden to turn their attention to him and to them at this hour. We'll deal with some of that, but I've got a larger set of questions for Takuma about the character of the nation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Bad Ash Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that 3 out of 4 adults in the United States have a high risk factor for severe COVID-19. And Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Here's another great reason to use the United States Postal Service this season. Your boxes are wrapped and the gifts are in. Our employees are ready. Let the holiday ride begin. Let's start with the price. It's easy to manage when you ship with the reliable USPS Ground Advantage. In just a few days, it's sure to arrive. We're working nonstop to keep the spirit alive. USPS Ground Advantage, the affordable and reliable shipping solution for the holidays. Visit USPS.com/advantage.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's cal-cruise-news.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm honored that Takuma Roback, the managing editor of the Chicago Defender, who is an alumnus of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, Chicago State University, and FAMU, is with us on KBLA. Welcome to KBLA, Mr. Roback.
Thank you for having me. I really look forward to this.
Takuma, tell us about the role of Black journalists in this environment and the history that Black journalists bring to the questions that they ask the president as well as elected officials.
The Black press has a unique role. We're not like the mainstream press, which has a mandate to adhere to objectivity. I think with the Black press, our role is we're more of a advocacy. We perform advocacy journalism, meaning we advocate for the policies, the politics, the procedures, the individuals who best serve our unique niche of readers and viewers. And so there's an additional mandate upon us to be able to screen, assess, and accurately disseminate information that best serves our viewership or readership.
So one could make the argument that not only must you be objective, which is the traditional journalism, but you must also be, as Tavis Smiley has taught us, to be an advocate. What do you mean by an advocate?
I think that with the Chicago Defender, adhering to the standard of Robert Singstack Abbott when he founded that publication in 1905 to be the voice of Black Chicago and beyond, to provide information that best benefits our uplift, our liberation, and the knowledge that we need to ascend, to assimilate, and to prosper as a people.
So when we hear Black journalists, it's not that they're not objective. It's just that you bring a historical content to the questioning because life in the African-American community from 1619 to the present represents a different reality.
I would say this, it represents a different reality, but it is essentially the American story as well. I would say that for sure.
I think there's something to be said because when I see African-American journalists in the White House press room, or I see African-American journalists covering mediums within the Black community, there is a sensitivity to the culture of Black people that is often expressed. And please don't get me wrong, African-American journalists can also be very, very objective and very, very, but at the same time, while asking the very difficult questions, there also is this sense that we have borne the burden of unfair public criticism, and therefore the Black journalist also has a responsibility for a different contextuality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you pose the question about the state of our nation, I think about when I got the opportunity to interview you earlier this year about, you said that you shudder for this nation. And from my corner of the universe, I also shudder for this nation because in our realm of storytelling and journalism, there isn't as much respect or regard for history and context. And that context is really important to help place people into the proper moment that we're experiencing. I think there's a lack of regard for that among certain people, especially in the audiences that we're fortunate to serve.
Let me try and break that down another way. When Dr. King talked about being tough-minded and tender-hearted, or being like Jesus's instruction, a serpent and a dove, I mean, the Black man, the Black woman has to confront on a daily basis a cold and recalcitrant world.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to come home and be mama.
Yeah.
And they got to be daddy. Yeah. And they have to be sensitive. And they got to be down with the people. And they got to do all of the stuff that's necessary to qualify and not lose any bona fides in the African American community. And so I would imagine that telling this story as a nonfiction journalist, that has to be difficult.
Well, it's difficult, but I think I can only speak for me personally. I am a person of faith. I understand the duality of that message is communicated in Matthew of what that means, to be in the world, but not of the world, but to, of course, ascribe to a higher ideal, this ideal of love. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. The golden rule, the ultimate commandment that Jesus had laid forth is very much the bedrock of my life. And it's through that faith that allows me to be tough, to be critical, to be fluent in moving about this world, hopefully, but also to come back home and be the husband, the father, the cat lover that I am in my personal life. It's a challenge, but again, for me personally, it's just having that foundation of faith that helps me.
So there's another level of sensitivity that comes with being a Black journalist.
Well, yeah, but I also think that we're using these terms of, being an advocate, objectivity, but I think it all starts with having a heart for humanity, right? To be able to tell this unique story of the African American journey in America, but do so from a humane perspective, right? I'm not. How does that look like in plain language? I am not offended or looking to disregard other histories, but hey, here's our story that you should consider as well. I respect your stories of your different cultures. I love the idea of diversity and humanity, but this is also our story, which is part of that central story that often gets disregarded or ignored.
So I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm still introducing myself to the audience. A few months ago, you interviewed me. We met for the first time.
Yes.
Tell me about your thinking before that meeting. Tell me about your thinking about the question that you were going to ask former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., the son of Jesse Jackson, all of those things that must have been going through your mind as you approached the interview in light of what you've said.
Indeed. And here's something that I didn't mention that I think is important for any person in the press. I don't care what color or background they come from. It's that empathy, right? The ability to be open to experiencing the person you're interviewing. And so that was my not approach, but that's my general way of being as a journalist. I operate better in this field when I'm empathetic and I'm open to different perspectives. And so I entered our interview open for the knowledge that you were going to impart. And I saw some synchronicities there, especially when we have the faith question. Be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves is a bedrock verse that I've always gravitated to in my study of the Bible. And so there was a synchronicity there. And with being empathetic and considerate of the human condition, knowing that we all fall short of the glory of God, that everyone deserves a second chance. And so I think that was also at play when we talked earlier in the year.
When I got up this morning or yesterday morning and I read your article, I took a shower and I cried. I cried because I felt that you captured what I was trying to say, what I've been trying to do, and you weren't someone who necessarily covered my career or covered my life. But in that moment, there was a sense of spirit. And for those of you who want to Google Takuma's article, it's in the Chicago Defender. It's called "Speaking of Pardons, Here's Why Jesse Jackson Jr. Deserves One." The way I approached the interview was, I did not want to come across, which has been my ministry for at least a decade now, as arguing the case for myself. That I would use this opportunity to educate our people, get some backlash, take a few blows, but to argue the case for millions of men and women who've paid their debt to society and still find themselves trapped in felonization.
Yeah.
I think you captured that beautifully in speaking of pardons. Here's why Jesse Jackson Jr. deserves one, but why millions of others deserve the same consideration. Share with us your thinking on that as well.
It's the universality of the need for redemption. This chair that I occupy currently, which I'm thankful for, is the managing editor of the Chicago Defender, is hard won. There's been many moments where I've needed that redemption. So I understand that journey. I've lived in some way that arc. And I've actually, before I got a chance to speak with you, I had an opportunity to interview a poet who's very well renowned, who discovered he was in solitary confinement for a crime he committed at 16 years old. And somebody has slipped Dudley Randall's Black Poets Anthology under his cell. And from there, he gravitated toward the world of poetry and has since become one of our foremost Black writers in the moment right now, when you're talking about the arts and letters and poetry in general. And he's an attorney. And so it's stories like those that I think demonstrate the perseverance of the human spirit, but I think they also serve as special, unique, and powerful examples to our readership, to the Chicago Defenders readership, of what is possible, especially if you've fallen down but have brought yourself back up, and the power of what you can do, even coming back from a situation where you were knocked down. So it's that living experience of having undergone my own story, understanding yours, and the people that I've had the pleasure of interviewing throughout my career.
Takuma, you have met African-American men and women who have been through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And you clearly are a person of great impact. What have you learned as you've interviewed them about the difficulty of their lives, even after incarceration?
Wow. I've learned that there's still a grappling with the past. I think we all do that. We all undergo that. But what I'm moved by, I'm a glass half full person as well, is in the stories that I can recall, how those individuals were able to not only deal and survive, but transcend their condition. And I think the value, the key element in their transcendence is that in their lives, they've been able to service others, which was another, again, synchronicity that I saw in our interview and your scholarship and what you're doing to help millions of people who've gone through incarceration. It's right, using your life in service to others as a way to transcend what has occurred in the past.
That transcendence, I mean, I think that speaks to the core of who we are as a people. I mean, it's part of the DNA of our culture, with what we've been through, with what we've seen and what we've experienced. So you bring, as a journalist, your faith to the table. Tell us about who you are as we go to our hard break in just a few moments.
Man, I'm a Christian, obviously. I love any form of faith that liberates the human soul, that doesn't discriminate, that has love as a foundation. And this faith has been, pardon the cliche, but the wind beneath my wings as a human being, as a Black men as a journalist. And notice I made that delineation, the type of Christian faith that liberates, that empathizes with others, that loves everyone despite their orientation, their ethnic background, their color, all of that. So that's who I am, right? As a converted Christian from 12 years ago, who was formerly a Buddhist, actually. That would be essentially my story from a faith perspective.
One of the things that I find particularly moving during this period is your calm spirit. It's your empathy, your capacity to look at people objectively, to look at reality objectively, to maintain some sense of centeredness in the context of a world that seems to be spinning out of character. And so when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, we are going to be discussing with Takoma Robach the significance of character and why it's so important for the nation.
You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
With 4 things you should know from BIN News. Aftershocks may be felt across Northern California after a 7.0 earthquake hit offshore. The quake prompted a tsunami warning, which has since expired. The quake hit near the California-Oregon state line. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the new Department of Government Efficiency is based on simple thinking. Johnson said government is too big. Mayor Eric Adams says investigators are moving fast, and he expects an arrest as more surveillance photos of the suspect accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson are being released. A federal judge has rejected a plea agreement between Boeing and the U.S. government concerning the fatal crashes of 2 737 MAX jets in 2018 and 2019. The crashes, which occurred in Indonesia and Ethiopia, resulted in the deaths of 346 people. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Baldwin Park, a wreck 605 southbound past Valley Boulevard. Reported in the carpool lane, delays away from Lower Azusa, also in Garden Grove. A wreck on the 22 eastbound past Euclid. Right lane's been blocked, delays away from Brookhurst Street. Stall in Santa Ana for the 5 northbound past 4th Street. Out of lanes to the right shoulder, delays out of Irvine from Sand Canyon. Willowbrook, a wreck reported. We're heading to the surface streets here, South San Pedro Street and East Rosecrans Avenue. So heads up here. We're also heading out to Anaheim 91 eastbound. Delays from the 5, very slow moving all the way to Green River.
Are you compliant with California's Clean Truck Check? Almost all vehicles over 14,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating operating in California need to report, pay annual fees, and test. Visit arb.ca.gov/cleantruckcheck.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Somebody needs to help me understand something. How can an offensive coordinator who helped the NFL Kansas City Chiefs win 2 Super Bowls not be good enough in the same role at UCLA? That's the mystery on the table today. Several sources are reporting that UCLA fired offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy today after only 1 season. Bieniemy was offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders in 2023. He is not the reason UCLA finished 5-7 and ranked 126 in the nation in scoring. Bieniemy went from coaching full-time football players to kids in college who are supposed to be taking classes, in addition to practicing every day during the week. College players don't have the luxury of spending all morning in film rooms, then go to practice, and then have more meetings. That's life in the NFL. It takes time to help turn around a low-level college football program, and UCLA did not give Bieniemy the time to do it. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, y'all to give us what we want. Y'all to give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
Medicare open enrollment is here, and it's a time you can make changes to your health coverage. Yet, watch out for enrollment and marketing scams. Remember, Medicare will neither call you nor solicit your business. Guard your card. Never give out your Medicare number to strangers. Unsolicited calls, door-to-door visits, and emails are prohibited. Take your time. Don't feel pressured to make a quick decision. Report scams to our California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080.
Are you tired of being stuck without internet access? Connect and go with LA County Library. It's simple. Visit your local LA County Library location and borrow a hotspot for free to get Wi-Fi wherever you are.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action.
This is Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580. We're joined again with Takuma Robach. Welcome back. Takuma, let me ask you another question. I was just thinking during the break about, there's this scene in the movie Lincoln where Abraham Lincoln is sitting on a porch, if you will, with Grant. And he says, I wouldn't care if Jeff Davis leaves the country. I really wouldn't care if let all of these boys go back home. I don't want to see any hangings for what they've done during the war. Let them go. I really want to now own the peace. And 160 years later, after having forgiven half of the country for its secessionist behaviors, we now see those same behaviors manifesting themselves in the carrying of Confederate flags and the behavior that we saw on January 6th in our nation's capital. But it was Lincoln's leadership that allowed the nation to stay together at its most difficult hour. Your thoughts on President Biden's character and leadership and what we see from Donald Trump on the question of character and leadership?
Well, so I did cover the Democratic National Convention that was here in Chicago. Speaking as an outsider, President Biden's decision to step down, that could have been at the urging, there are reports that it was at the urging of different parties, but nevertheless sacrificing himself for what he thought would be a progressive decision. Whether it worked out or not, I think says a lot about President Biden. Of course, to have a career in politics as long as he has, no one's a saint, right? We can all point to mistakes we have made, to policy decisions we've made that have hurt people. But in that moment, I think that here's a political figure who's thinking about the picture, a larger picture than himself. And that was a moment when he was able to, after his performance during that first debate, was persuaded to step down, to step aside, to allow Kamala Harris to step in and run for his seat, to gain the Democratic nomination. I think that says a lot about him personally. And I've had an opportunity at the DNC to interview a variety of people, from media personalities to federal lawmakers, about that. And that's been by far the sentiment that I gathered in interviewing a lot of people during the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. As for the president-elect, I've made my thoughts known in print about who he is. I don't know if it's as useful for me to talk about what I see are a number of concerning traits that make me and a lot of people have concern about what this country will look like starting January 20th. I could sit here and go into chapter and verse my thoughts about him, but I think it's pretty evident from my perspective of what he represents.
What I could not anticipate on this question of character is just how one person, without it, how much chaos they can cause for an entire nation in the wrong place. So it isn't just about Tacoma Roback having character or Jesse Jackson Jr. having character. The character has to be in the right place at the right time, at the helm of the nation. And there is a process to get someone in a position to demonstrate the kind of character and the kind of leadership that, quite frankly, literally affects the spirit energy of the people. The founding fathers had to give that some consideration when they put the commander of the army and he shall grant reprieves and pardons. It's hard to imagine someone having the power to command an army and grant reprieves and pardons. Commander of an army, well, let's just say that's David and a militia that threw a rock, threw a slingshot, and killed Goliath, and grants reprieves and pardons. That's Jesus, David and Jesus, David and Jesus. 28 generations between David and Jesus. And so the founding fathers gave character and the spirit energy of the nation some profound thought at the inception of this nation, because they understood that the character of one person had the capacity to change things, the character of a major institution. Either you believe in the least of these, or you believe in tax breaks and tax cuts for people who don't need them. Either you believe in exclusive health care for somebody, or you believe in universal coverage for everybody. Either you believe in mansions and more houses than you can collect for an individual, or you believe in decent, safe, and affordable housing and a housing standard for everybody. Who serves as president of the United States impacts the entire character of the nation. Tacoma.
Absolutely. The character, the spirit, the morale of a nation, I feel. And we just look at before November 5th, weeks before, months before, there was a lot of talk around Project 2025 as the husband of an educator, and what has been proposed in that document, and the selection of the person who would head education. It's concerning because these decisions are not being made with the heart of a nation in consideration. From our journalism at the Chicago Defender and Real Times Media, we see the president-elect's position on education as detrimental to people of color, especially that so many of us rely on the public education system. For those of us who are dealing with children with special needs, how abolishing the Department of Education would disrupt their education, those children with special needs. This is clearly a policy position that doesn't consider the heart and soul of a nation, an idea of unification of many different people who rely on these services to get an education and have a firm stake in this country economically and educationally as well. So, I mean, it's evident. It's right there with that example.
It's my hope that journalists like yourself will get unique opportunities to be on the national stage during this era. I'm a little tired of hearing some of the same old faces and the same old analysis that comes from people who don't come from a faith-rooted grounding in history, who understand that we have an obligation in whatever position we're in, whether members of Congress, whether members of the journalism. I can't think of a single career in the African-American community where faith isn't central to the cause historically of our people. And Takuma, we're grateful for the work that you do. When we come forward, it will be with Takuma Robach for our near final segment on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward.
Bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This season, Chevy brings classic pairings, cookies and milk, mistletoe and kisses, and your holiday plans and a new Chevy. Silverado 1500 gives you power and capability with 430 pound-feet of torque to haul your holiday tree. Equinox EV and the all-new Equinox offer award-winning quality and style to see you through the holiday season. See why Chevy makes everything better and brighter. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife.org liveyourlife32.com. That's liveyourlife32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm joined with Takuma Robach, who is going to be with us not only for the remainder of the hour, but also in the next hour, where we will be welcoming Hermine Hartman. Hermine Hartman is the founder of Chicago's leading African-American mega newspaper, Indigo. She's one of few African-American women in publishing. Hermine Hartman began her career during the Civil Rights Movement by working for Operation Breadbasket. She coordinated the organization's Black Expo. She later produced public service programming for WBBM TV. Her move into publishing industry came after her tenure as vice chancellor of the City of Chicago City Colleges. In 1989, she founded the mega newspaper Indigo. Hermine has successfully operated the Hartman Group, a full-service public relations firm, since 1977. And she will be joining us with Takuma Robach, the managing editor of the Chicago Defender, along with Delmarie Cobb, who founded the Publicity Works. Ms. Cobb has served as a political consultant for a long list of candidates, starting with Alderman Bobby Rush in his first congressional bid against incumbent U.S. Charles Hayes, for Jesse Jackson Jr. in 1995 in my special election, former Illinois Comptroller Dan Hines' reelection campaigns for Cook County, Dick Devine, but she's also worked on national presidential and congressional campaigns across the country. We're going to get in the next hour, Takuma, the state of the affairs of the nation from three of our nation's preeminent journalists, including the managing editor of the Chicago Defender. Takuma, tell us more about yourself.
More about myself. Wow. Like my bio said, I've always been attracted to the storytelling and journalism. I grew up, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And so I grew up with the Amsterdam News, the Daily News, the New York Times. Newspapers are always a part of my household. And so I went to study journalism in the 90s at Florida A&M University. And obviously, we're in a much different media world right now. And so how I've been able to continue is that it's just being a lifelong learner, learning to adapt and adjust in this current journalistic environment that we're in, where it's more video centric, where we have now content creators who are doing journalism that's consumed by the masses. And I know some people will like to do the air quotes when they talk about content creators in journalism, but I think it's also a very valid and effective way of storytelling that journalists like myself from the old school have had to adapt in order to still continue in this space.
So before I get to the new school, you mentioned the Amsterdam News. You're obviously the managing editor of the Defender. You are also very influential and running the Pittsburgh Courier.
Oh no, I'm not. I don't run it. That's Mr. Rod Doss. I want to say that he's the publisher of the New Pittsburgh Courier. He's a colleague. He's somebody who I bow to. They ran, but they didn't run the story. And thank you to them. Him and Stephen Broadus for running that story over at the New Pittsburgh Courier.
My question is, as someone who has attended FAMU and has been covering Black news before the video environment, before this environment, we have our own critique as Black journalists of mainstream white media. What is it that the New York Times missed that you got? What is it that the Sun-Times and the Tribune get that don't get that you get in terms of covering our community, our leaders, and our people?
Well, I think you can tell how diverse the publication is by the way they write about or cover certain events. And again, some of those publications, I won't name any names specifically, but having been in the editorial board meeting of a prestigious publication, wasn't very diverse. There weren't a lot of people of color there. There wasn't a lot of age diversity there either. And I would venture to say even socioeconomic diversity in that room. I think to truly, what I got was an understanding that, our perspective is often missing when it comes to those big editorial decisions. And the publication that I mentioned before, without naming, there are many examples of that. Very prestigious publications across the country that simply lack the diversity. Journalism schools lacking diversity. And so, again, my perspective is simply growing up as an African-American man in the United States who happens to be from Brooklyn, New York, but has lived in Chicago for about 17 years now.
When I think about, Dorothy Lavelle at the Crusader in Gary, Indiana, and I think about the Abbotts who founded the Defender, when I think about John H. Johnson, Ebony and Jet, and Earl Graves, Black Enterprise, and Lewis over at Essence Magazine, when I think of those who've tried to carve out an interpretive space for Black people because the mainstream media has ignored our stories, I think about this context of determining what will constitute the truth going forward, just how important Black media and Black journalists truly are going to be for our own mental health. Your thoughts, Takuma?
I think it goes with calling a spade, right? In our most momentous moments, being able to tell the truth and all of it in an unfiltered but very compelling way. I think about, and this is often referred to, especially when we talk about the history of the Defender, Emmett Till, right? And when, Emmett Till's lynching and murder and torture was first reported, national media spaces at the time did not mention him by name. Some didn't even acknowledge it. But the Chicago Defender and other Black publications mentioned his name. They humanized this boy. They let people into his life. We saw the images of his funeral that was visited, where hundreds of thousands of people visited his services. And so, again, our role as the Black press is, again, that came up earlier in our interview, being able to humanize, contextualize, and tell the truth about what is going on in our current moment as a country, as a people, as a community. And that's my answer to it. That's what we bring. That's what we're assigned to do. And as you name all these luminaries from Chicago, John Sengstack Abbott, John Johnson, Dorothy Lavelle, Hermine Hartman, these are luminaries. And I just hope to get by and just do my job every single day. But we all have that. We have that mandate to be unfiltered, to serve our people and be advocates, tell the truth, and provide that context that's often missing in mainstream media.
I know that we're going to talk about this in the next hour because you're going to be our guest through the next hour, but there have to be challenges for Black-owned media before the internet, before the now non-traditional news sources, how you guys are funded, how you raise money, how you get sponsorships in order to survive and maintain the integrity of Black press. Share with us some of the difficulties. I know we're going to deal with it in the next hour.
Well, I think industry-wide, even beyond Black publications, as we all deal with the manpower issue, I was at a recent event in Chicago where a report was released about the state of journalism. It's a national report by the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University that revealed that in 20 years, journalism has lost 86% of its workforce.
86%.
86%. So that's catastrophic. That's up there when you think about people who worked in the textile industries back in the days. That's comparable to that kind of loss in the industry. And so what you have industry-wide are individuals doing multiple jobs that were once siloed off and provisioned. You had copy desk editors, multiple editors. You had different layers of editorial leadership that have been condensed. You have reporters covering a multitude of beats. And so that's industry-wide. And so I think that's also evident in journalism in terms of the Black press as well. So there are considerable challenges to do this work.
When we come forward, we will be joined with Delmarie Cobb, Hermine Hartman, and Takuma Robach to talk about the state of Black media. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580.